right now. And I will once again say good evening and welcome to our May meeting of the Inland Northwest Writers Guild. We're going to talk about editing, which is a very, very popular topic, but also a very complicated one. That's why it took me 6 different documents, and I've just barely touched on the internet sites and places that you could get information. So this will get you started, but don't feel you have to give up at that point because there's way more out there for you to discover. And hopefully what will happen, people may not be able to tell you a good place to go, but they probably can warn you of a bad place to go. That's usually the way it works. We know those kinds of things happen where you get an unscrupulous person and they just want all your money, and that's not a good thing. So I'm going to start off. I've got a number of things to share, and I think I will. I better hit share screen first. Okay, this one was one that I found. It's 25 editing tips for tightening your copy. I thought I would start with self-editing. Now, this is for people who have written their original work, they have a manuscript ready, but they want to maybe try to cut down their eventual cost for editing by doing some of the work themselves. And so I'm just going to zip through these. Again, I could send it to you if you wish. It's a long document, but it's got good stuff in it. I pulled it from an article by Alexis Grant at thewritelife.com. And she starts with how she edits. And when she discovers that, she's got to do some more to it because it's just not good enough. And so she gives tips. First one, cut long sentences in 2. I have trouble with that because I'm a long sentence writer. So, one of the first things that I can hear is a lot of screams going off, including mine. Hey, that's my voice. That's how I write. Don't tell me I have to chop up my sentences or anything. And it's up to you. These are people who are making recommendations for usually early writers who haven't had that much published. Some of you are so well published already and getting people to buy your work that you don't have to worry about this stuff. So, but just take it to heart if you feel like it. 2, axe the adverbs, just the ly words. Now, we've heard this before, but they just don't have to be there. They're kind of weak, and I use them a lot, okay? Stick to one voice. It confuses the reader if you switch between voices. Maybe for a while you're talking as I saw this and I'm telling you this, and then switch some along. All of a sudden you're doing you, and you should worry about this. And don't do that. Don't switch around all over the place. And of course I do that one too. Actually, and when you switch voices, there are some innovative writers out now, new ones, that are very good at doing this. So if you are already an accomplished writer and you've been told that you are good at this, then of course you can go ahead and do that. But if some of these things, you'll be told, don't do this. And that's true unless you're so skilled and so knowledgeable that you can pull it off, okay? Remove extra punctuation. That is what it says. Don't need a lot of that. Replace negative with positive. Simple things like making a statement. You don't want to make these mistakes in your writing. Could be better stated as, you want to avoid these mistakes in your writing. And you see the difference there. People don't like being told, you should do this. And most adults don't like being told what to do. So a better way is to suggest that these are things that you might want to avoid. Replace stuffy words with simple ones. I don't think I could find a stuffy word anymore if I tried, frankly. But remove redundancies. You don't need to say the exact same thing with 2 words. And she says, did you catch the redundant words in that sentence? The exact same thing. exact and same are the same. You don't, prune it down a little bit, get some of that out of there. Reduce prepositions. Cut in order to. You don't need to have sentences. In order to do this, da da da. Just say, to do this, do this. It's and I apologize for if I sound scattered tonight because my brain isn't exactly with me. Don't use start to. The car doesn't start to roll down the hill. The car rolls down the hill. The guy doesn't, or the woman or guy doesn't start to cry. He cries, okay? Get rid of the word that. It shows up all the time in people's writing, and it really isn't necessary. Here's an example. I decided that journalism was a good career for me. Reads better as I decided journalism was a good career for me. See how that's an extra word that just doesn't need to be in there. Replace thing with a better word. People want to tie up these things. Well, what are those things? Don't use the word thing if you can avoid it. Try really hard to spot instances of the word very and really. It is very important, and it's really important. Well, it's important. You don't need those others. We think we have to just beat people over the head with something to make them think it really is important, but you don't have to. Make your verbs stronger. We don't want verbs that are sort of lackadaisical and don't have much punch to them. And a mashing with that is ditch the passive voice. A passive voice is when you talk about an object and what's happening, like the door was left open. It's better to say someone left the door open or he left the door open. Okay? Refer to people as who, not that. Now, this is one that's always bugged me. Whenever you're talking about a person, it's a who. If you call them a that, you're turning them into an object, and that's just not very friendly. Avoid currently. If you're saying something is happening, of course it's current. You don't need to say it's current. It is by the fact that it's happening right now. Eliminate there is or there are at the beginning of sentences. Match up your bullet points. Again, this can be sent out, so I'm just not really cover a lot. Use contractions. People feel like they should be a little more highfalutin and not use contractions, but contractions are the way people talk. And when you use contractions, it makes the voice of the characters sound more friendly, okay? But again, it depends on what kind of writing that you're doing. Yeah. See, I just threw that in there. Depends on what kind of writing you are doing. Steer clear of the ing trap. Now, I use ings a lot. What are they called? Gerunds, I think. And I love gerunds, and I'm always got them in my writing. So I have to watch for that. Check your commas with that and which. If you use the word that, you don't need a comma after it. If you use the word which, they're before it. If you use the word which, you do. Okay? And I don't know why, but that's what the rule says. Replace, if you've said that over 200 people have done something, make it more than 200 people. And again, I don't know why, but that's what's in here. Maybe you can look it up and see the history of the use of that word. Maybe Frank knows better what that's all about. Hyphenate modifiers. If you have the idea of full-time work, then you can hyphenate it. But if somebody's working full-time, you don't hyphenate it. Okay? And identify your tells. This is for you to figure out what is it about my writing that I repeat over and over and over again. It's almost like a fingerprint, and some stuff is a good idea because it is part of your voice, and some stuff isn't really part of your voice at all. Okay, I'm gonna get off of that one. And I would like to know if anybody has any comments about that particular list of things. So consider always deleting, replacing it is. I see this more often than I'd like. Oh, it's, yeah. IT apostrophe S is the it is. ITS is the possessive. It's. The cat licked its paws. You don't put an apostrophe in there. But any other favorite things people that drives them crazy when they see some of the grammar stuff? No, see, you people are just on top of everything. You don't
Well,
really.
I was going to say, some people are repetitive. I mean, they'll say the same
Like
thing
me.
twice. No, I mean, in a different way, but it's just,
Okay. Well, Kathy Rita says that it's a good list, so I'll take her word for it.
can we get a copy of that, or can you email it?
Yeah, that's what I said. Just email me whatever, any one of these lists that you want. I've got some more to go through. That was the longest article. The rest of them are shorter.
That was a good one. No, I would like a one.
And I won't remember you verbally asking me, so.
All right, we'll remind you.
Yeah, please email me about it, okay? And I apologize, but my little old brain is getting so tuckerty pooped that I can't keep all this stuff in it, and that's all there is to it. Okay, let's see here. Let's share something else then. Let's see how to find the types of editors. We talked about this briefly a little bit before, but let's do that. I've actually got 2 different documents that I can share about that topic, and also I can send them out. I went online and I found somebody new that I had not quoted before, and it's Mary Cole, and I don't know if anybody here has heard of her, but she's got her stuff up on a website. She's really great. This article is about different types of editors, and you want to find an editor for your needs. And she starts with a manuscript proofreader. And we were talking before about critiquing and how critiquing is a different critter from all the different kinds of editors. So some of this stuff slops back and forth, but this gives you a description of the different kinds of editors. A manuscript proofreader is looking for typos, grammatical mistakes, formatting, things of that sort. Manuscript formatters and fact checkers are also in this light touch category. So they're giving you a certain kind of support for your work too, but it's not as heavy and deep as some of the other. Manuscript copy editor is actually looking at your overall layout of your grammar in that. And I got somebody trying to come in. There we go. I'll let Sandy in. Let's see, where were we? The copy editor is looking at the overall quality of the writing and the writing voice and things of that sort. You have a manuscript line editor working with grammar and mechanics, but they're now entering more creative territory. Their questions are bigger issues of voice, writing style, readability, characterization, plotting, and storytelling. So they're really getting in deeper into the manuscript and into what you're trying to do with the writing. And then there's the developmental editor. And this is probably the most comprehensive and full service type of editor that you can hire. They're going to be looking at the overall, everything that you have to do to develop your book, develop your story. Everything from voice to sentences to grammar to everything. And then she has hiring an editor, next steps. A little bit there about how to find an editor. She's got a couple of links that you can follow. Word is wonderful because you can hover over a link and pull down the control button and then click on that and it will take you to that other thing. But I found several articles on her site and I sort of grabbed, I think, 2 or 3 of them. So I'm going to get out of that. She had another one with the same topic. Editor types. Make sure we do this correctly. Editor types 2. And these are 12. Now this person's saying, here's 12 types of editors and what they do. I noticed that in this one, some of these editors have more to do with magazine writing, things of that sort. So she describes what editors do, what are the different types. Starts with the beta reader. We've talked about beta readers a little bit in the past. The proofreader, the online editor. Now that's somebody that's out there online, and you can, a lot of sites, you can send your work to them and go back and forth that way while they're online. Let's see, a critique partner is a little bit different than the critiquing we were talking about last time. This is one other person that you work with closely, and a critique partner tries to do a lot. Sometimes they almost act like a coach more than an editor. They're a person that you have that kind of helps encourage you and keep you going. And let's see, commissioning editor is the person that you would want to contact if you want to submit something. Now, typically, if you're going for a novel, a major publisher, you're probably going to have to go through an agent who will then submit to a commissioning editor. But this is more for like articles and things in magazines, stuff of that sort, where you would want to send something directly to them to see if they will take it on. A developmental editor, they're coaches to get ready for publication. Content editor, and I'm just going to zip through these. Again, I can send this to you if you want it. Copy editor, associate editor. They often work for newspapers or magazines. And another term for this position is section editor. So as you can see, as we go down through this list, there are all these different levels of editors. And in each case, they have a particular job that they perform, and they're not going to do the other kinds of activities that somebody else at the company may do. Contributing editor, the chief editor, the editor-in-chief. And so it's important to try to figure out which kind of editor you're really needing for whatever you're doing. Yeah. Let's see here, I think we can stop that. I'm going to take a pause now and see if there's any comments people want to make about that idea of the types of editors there are. Any input there?
I guess you can send those things out too, right, Glenda?
Yeah, anything you write and ask before.
Okay.
If you want to try it online, like it's not a person, but there's an online editing system, AutoCrit. Has anybody heard of that?
I've heard of it, but not in detail.
I've used it several times, and I think what I like it for, I mean, there's a free version and then a paid version, but I like that it'll actually go through and it'll show all the redundancies, and it'll show a lot of that of the grammatical errors. It'll show like when you're using like passive voice, and it just shows you all the parts in your manuscript, so you can go back and see if you want to fix them or if you want to change them or not. It just highlights them, so you can go see if you want to do anything about it. So I kind of like
That was called what?
AutoCrit. I can put it in I'll put it in the chat. They have a whole community of writers too that.
Yeah, and later I've got a few links that I grabbed that are to software that you can use for editing, and also some of the places to look for editors. So, but this is great because I did not have AutoCrit in there. So.
And I think they have a editing service, though I haven't used that and I don't know anything about it, but I saw a link for it. So I don't know anything about it other than they have one for like, so you actually have a person look at it instead of the computer. So
Cool. Steve?
Yeah, there's another program too that one of the gals in my critique uses. which is Grammarly.
Okay. That one I'm familiar with.
Yeah,
I-
I'll agree.
I use-
Grammarly is really good. I've used it too.
I've used one called Pro Writing Aid.
Oh, yeah, right. There's a program, writing aid.
Aid.
Not sure how to split it off there. There's a program, I think, that I grabbed either the cheap or the free version, and they always want me to buy the more complicated one. Anything else on that part of it? Okay, let's go on then to the next. Let's see, that was the types, how to find them, the cost, and sources. Okay, let's go to, make sure I get this opened up right first. Okay, did I get that up right? How to find an editor. This is Mary Cole again, and because I get a lot of questions about how do I find an editor that I can hire or use. So a lot of editors, if they're not working for a publishing house or something like that, then they are considered a freelancer. They're usually on one of these sites, and there's a lot of these are very good sites. They're well recommended, and I think I did include a few later on, but they've been vetted. These are people who have a history of doing good work. They maybe have been doing this for 20, 25 years. And yeah, so you can trust them. That's one of the primary things you want to watch for, is make sure that you're going to get the service that you expect. Now you'll find that as a rule of thumb, your very good professional editors are going to cost more. It's just a fact. They're good at what they do. If they're doing hourly, usually it may sound like a horrible hourly fee, but they're able to do it quickly. And so it all sort of evens out. Now, you can always go for somebody who doesn't charge as much, but you need to be aware that you may not get the service that you're expecting. Anyway, hiring a book editor and knowing what you're paying for. And then this person has a list of questions to ask a book editor. This is a good article that I want to share with you too, if you request it. What is your publishing or editing experience? Do you work in my category? Now, in this case, she primarily does kid lit, but she says about 30% of her clients are writing outside the kid lit space. So about 70% of her work is in kids' books. Do you provide an introductory call or sample? Some will do that, some will not. So you might want to weigh that when you're choosing someone and make sure that, you know, should I have this kind of thing? If it's somebody that's been recommended to you by another writer who has actually used their service, then you probably don't have to be quite as picky about a lot of this. But if they're a stranger to you, total stranger without a reference, then be very careful. And again, can you connect me to a reference? Now, one of the things you can do is ask them simply, what books did you edit? Have you got books that you've edited? So you can look up those books and see what you think of them. And possibly, because of course, if you look up a book, you're going to get the author's name. Then you can write the author and say, poor Steve's down there yawning. He did a big presentation today, and he's kind of tuckered and pooped too. But anyway, you can usually find out what other clients think of them. Do you work via phone or in writing? What is the scope of your service? What is your turnaround? You don't want to think in the back of your mind, oh, well, this is just going to take this person 3 months or a month or 2 months. And actually a year down the road, you still haven't gotten your work. How do you handle revisions? What if you don't care for, what they've done? What kind of revision are they apt to do for you? How do you handle questions and follow-up? Do you have an agreement? Is there a written agreement that you both can sign? Make sure that you have something to look to if you have some concerns. Do you provide any guidance on next steps, submission or publication? Some editors are fairly knowledgeable of the publishing industry, and they can actually point you towards good directions to follow. Let's see, there's another one that goes with this, I believe. Yeah, the sources. This is a list that I have of sources of where you can try to see if you can find some editors. And I've listed some links here. Reedsy is one of them. They've actually got, if you go to Masterclass, they've got some things you can get into. I think I just went there off the internet. Now I am a member separately, but they had no way of knowing that. And they offered me to look at all this different information. So, did I get us back up there? Stop share. I think that got messed up here. Let's try that again. Let's do two. Okay, is that better?
Yeah, that's fine.
Let's see. And from Writer's Digest, there was an article, and they listed several different links in there. Editorial for Freelancers Association. A lot of times, the organizations and the associations like this, they're more reliable simply because they've been around for quite a while and they have professionals with them. So, Independent Editors Group, Book Editors Alliance, National Association of Independent Writers and Editors, the Professional Editors Network. Now, you're probably not going to want an editor out of the Bay Area, but that's in this paragraph, so I left it. And there is somebody out of Seattle, the Northwest Editors Guild. And if in fact, if you decide it's not a good idea to work with somebody so far away in Seattle, maybe they know somebody in our area who would be a good option. I think I have one more thing. I might as well throw it in there because it has to do with cost. How much does an editor cost? And we're back with Mary Cole, and she did some really good, she's given some really good figures here for the different types of editing. And this is always a question that people ask, what should they be paying for stuff? And so she's broken it down. She pulled the industry standards for manuscript proofreading rates, usually are from 1 to 2 cents per word. Sometimes people do proofreading by page, and that can be like $1.50 to $3.50 per page. Manuscript copy editing rates, that's a step up in terms of what they're doing, where they're actually working with everything that you have on the page. You do a little more detail in their work on it, and that's like 2 to 4 cents per word. Some copy editors charge by manuscript page $2.50 to $5. Then there's manuscript line editing rates. If you're familiar with line editing, it involves more creative feedback on your project, and it's sort of more of a you've done this over and over in your paragraphs, and it's not really moving the story ahead. So you may want to think about, ways to cut out some of the extra stuff so that and get a move on with the story. That's more line editing. and that'll be maybe from 4 to 9 cents per word. Could be up to $5 to $15 a page. I know I about fell over, but of course, we're talking professionals. And a good average for editorial services rates is 6 cents per word or $12 per page. And then the really serious manuscript development edit rates are a little higher, 7 to 12 cents, $7.50 to $20 a page. I see your kitty cat behind you, Denise. If you're watching Kitty, it was up on the counter back there. Yeah, a good average for a developmental editor here is 9 cents per word or $15 per page. Now, when I went to that one event, I think I mentioned last time when we were talking critiquing, and they charge it. They were saying there, this Reedsy editor, who's very knowledgeable and very successful. They work with some major national authors, but they're talking like $1 a word. And so, you know, $60,000 for a novel. And of course, I just kind of had a fit when I heard that, but Lord, I wouldn't make that much money in 3 years. So let's see here. Then there are revision rates, book editing hourly rates, everything from $25 maybe for a student just out of college to $350 an hour for a seasoned professional. Now, frequently, this may be for shorter projects like a short story or something of that sort, where it's not going to take more than maybe an hour or two total. But okay. And then she has a next steps link. And I think that was the final document that I actually prepared for us. And again, I'm just amazed whenever I research any of the topics for our sessions. I'm blown away by how much information there is out there. I mean, the internet is just stuffed with it. Every time today I went out, I was looking at a final mix and I came up with that last woman and I really liked her site and I loved what she had to say. I mean, she seemed very, very knowledgeable and I'd never heard of her before. I mean, you know, so every time I go out to do research, I come up with somebody new and different. And believe me, if I ever get around to doing another newsletter, which I'm hoping I will, I'll get over this allergy stuff. You know, if you've got good things to send me, go ahead and send the links. Tell me about the websites and I'll share them with everybody in the newsletter. So anyway, that is pretty much, thanks, Tonda. I have your message here. And that's pretty much what I had to share. I don't want to put you all to sleep now. And so I will ask, Frank had said he'd be willing to fill in holes. Let's see, others had volunteered too. So I'm up for whatever you want to throw out there. Now, don't all rush to speak at once.
Yeah, I'd like to ask a question. Has anybody heard anything about crowdfunding? It's supposedly to help your book sell after you have it published.
Anybody want to answer that? There's a lot of people, Joyce, that are going out and up front, they're getting people to send them money. It's kind of like people are buying stock in their book, in their work. So they're getting money up front to help them develop the package and send it out. And at the same time, they're maybe promising them 1 or more copies of the finished work, things of that sort for their money. Steve, he's ready.
Yeah, two of the people in my critique group are using Kickstarter and have had some tremendous success. Kickstarter, basically you put together a proposal for Kickstarter to consider. If they approve it, then it goes online and they have a huge following. And so one of my group is a graphic novelist. He does full color glossy books that are basically comics. He does vampire, let's see, unicorn, vampire, hunter, and various and sundry other things. He's done 3 this year that he set a goal of $6,000, and on all 3 of those he went over 12,000. It's done by they get a book, or they can join at different, or they can back it at different levels, and at each level they get more premiums, more things. He does die cut stickers and trading cards, bookmarks, the books themselves. Christy followed his lead with a children's book, and she set a low goal of $2,000 and brought in nearly $13,000 on hers. And she's at her highest level, her premium level. For those backers, she's actually sending them not the books and bookmarks and stickers and all kinds of things, but also a plush fox, stuffed fox, because it involves a fox in the story. And so she's actually contracted a company that makes these stuffed animals. And so she'll be doing that. But the main thing is the number of backers. So Caleb traditionally gets between 500 and 600 backers. So that's readers right there. And Christy on her first one there, the children's book, went over 350 backers. So that's a pretty good sized market share for independents like us. So I'm considering doing that with INWG. And doing it actually for all 3 books in the series, where I'll have INWG as the primary, and then if they want, they can get the first and the second book and what have you. So I'm looking at possibly doing that, but it's been very successful, and it's brought in quite a bit of money for those 2. One other person, and I forget what his name was, but he's a well-recognized writer, and he decided to do a campaign where he was going to release 4 books, and he didn't have the titles or anything. He just said 4 books, and he set a goal of $1 million, and be darned if he didn't hit $19 million. He has that large of a following. So, I mean, it's a potentially rich area to work in. That's
Brandon
it.
Sanderson is who you're talking about.
Yeah, Brandon
Mhm.
Sanderson. That's it. Yeah.
Thanks,
$19 million though. Wow.
Layla, you had said, I think that you'd heard of it. Have you done anything like that, or?
I haven't done anything yet, but I'm definitely considering it for the spring for my debut novel. I did look at the information from Brandon Sanderson on Kickstarter, and what I noticed is that those that were successful had basically done everything ahead of time. So they were showing videos of the book and the layout, and they had arcs and everything. So you're not really getting the money up front to create the book, but what you're doing is you're sort of recouping the cost that you'd already spent to make the book.
Right.
Yeah, it can be different levels of involvement. Christie's book had most of the artwork done, but the book hadn't been printed, so she had some artwork that she could use, you know, in the promotion. Caleb has 2 of them were completely finished and ready to go, but he also has one that's in development at this point. So once you get a bit of a following, you can usually, you know, go with less upfront.
Lots of people. Beth?
I'd like to kind of pull this back to editing.
Mhm. Sure.
When I recently finished the first rough draft, I wanted some feedback from people who weren't familiar with the story. So one woman who was a professional and well-established writer, I had done a beta read for her. So I wrote her directly and requested, would she be willing? And she said, oh, sure. And then I posted on my blog a call for beta readers, and I posted on Facebook, and I found, and then I asked my writing friends. So I found about 5 people, and I had 0 expectations as to what kind of feedback I would get, but it was amazing. The professional writer gave a really in-depth, what you would call kind of structural editing, where she tackled such things as plot, pacing, characters, and really dug into the bones of the story. No cost. I mean, did I mention I'm a frugal indie writer? Several of the other folks who responded gave what I would call reader responses, but they pointed at holes in the story or holes in character arc that I hadn't seen, but are relatively easy to fix. And then there was one writer who I was really excited about getting feedback from, and I waited, and I waited, and I waited. Nada. Finally, I took my courage and wrote her, and she said, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I had COVID." So I immediately forgave her, right? Who wouldn't? So what I can say is the professional writer I met on a listserv for that specializes in mystery fiction written about women mystery fiction. And she's really a neat contact. But what I want to say is we do have to trust ourselves and our skills, but knowing when you need an editor doesn't mean you have to pay those fairly elaborate and expensive costs to get reasonable feedback. We all belong to local groups that have other writers. Another example is right now I'm doing a line, what I call a copy edit for someone who wants to finish his book, but he has some real problems in spelling, grammar, punctuation. Story is great. But I just feel like sometimes we do these things because we want to help other writers, not because we're trying to put money in the bank, or we would want feedback, but we don't necessarily want to pay $600 to someone we don't know. Now, so the second question came up on the Mystery Women Writers listserv. How do you recognize or say thank you to people who do such wonderful work for you when you most need it, because you're not necessarily paying them? Well, the responses from this group, which is primarily indie writers, was everything from, gosh, I never thought of that, to I pay them $100, to oh, I give them a little something, I give them a free copy, and I recognize them in the book itself as helping me on my road to finishing this book. So I thought that was kind of nice. And then a woman that I did a beta read for, and she liked it a lot, she made me some pot holders. And I was just, whoa, pot holders, I didn't expect that.
Yeah.
So I want to show you something. So I happen to be a quilter on the side. In fact, I'm either writing or quilting. The quilting comes between. So I made this. And this is a Indonesian batik.
Wow.
And it's just a little, you know how we're supposed to avoid using plastic. So this is just a little grocery bag, but this is my present for one of my beta readers.
Oh,
So
that's
what I want to say is how do we build community within the writers we know and who know our work? And I'm saying sharing our work isn't another way. I just wanted to share that.
No, that's great. Because it makes me think about the fact that we often think about this as an industry, and it does have everything from the huge publishing houses as we move on down. But at this level, at the level where people are frequently self-publishing or publishing with very small presses, it is more of a community. And I think that I would suggest to people, if they're trying to move into the top industrial end of it, to think of it as, okay, you're biting off a very professional level, business oriented, I won't say dog eat dog cutthroat, but generally speaking, they're not, one publishing house is not about to help another publishing house. If you're writing for one of them, the other ones don't want to, and I ran into that with an experience on trying to post an event that I've got coming up for an author on Kensington, and I'm putting on a special book club thing for her. And I accidentally, and I do a lot of reviews for Simon and Schuster, but I accidentally posted that on the Simon and Schuster Facebook book club thing, and I didn't even think about it because I'm function more as a community member. I tend to do reviews. I order books from Macmillan and I do a lot of their reviews, but I also review Simon and I review stuff from little bitty presses and all across the board. So it didn't even dawn on me. They're not going to want to put this up. This is about a Kensington author. So, and of course, as soon as it darked out and it said it's pending, they'll let you know. And then I checked it. I went, oh my God, I put it on the Simon thing. That's just not going to fly. So anyway, it is a whole different atmosphere. And I think one of the wonderful things about writing and publishing at this level is it may not get all the bells and whistles and the big, New York Times headlines and everything, but oh my, it's such a wonderful thing to be a part of, and everything I do, I just do it because I want to help everybody. And, I think it's wonderful. I get to meet all of you and see what you're up to. And you're always willing to chip in information and come to these meetings. I mean, that's what we do. We share. So thank you. I appreciate those comments. Yeah.
We appreciate your time in doing so.
Thank you. I love doing it. Frank, you're still quiet. Did you find any potholes in this stuff?
I don't think potholes. I think you did a wonderful job, and the other editions were great too. But I did jot down a half a dozen quick thoughts that I thought I might share that occurred to me or that came from my experience, if you'd like. Word and Microsoft Word has a feature in it that some people may not be familiar with. It's the read aloud feature. And I don't have Word up right now. I don't want to make you wait while I find it, but I think it's under the review tab. But it's not like listening to someone narrate your book. It's pretty basic, but I think better editing happens particularly when you're closer to the last draft or the final review. I used to always read it aloud, which is exhausting. This basically does it for you. I mean, if you can put up with Steve's book would be tough because it probably mispronounce half the names and things like that. But you will spot things that you would spot if you were reading it aloud by listening to it, as long as you stay focused a little bit. And you can go a lot longer. I don't know how long you can read aloud to edit, but I can go like 3-4 times as long by listening to Word do it. So just thought I'd pass that along. I think that one of the best ways to become a better editor, at least it was for me, is of my own work, is to do the deep dive edits on someone else's work. If you edit other people and get good at editing other people's works, because you have that objectivity when you're editing someone else's work. And so you get good at it. Eventually you can turn that same objectivity or close to it to your own work. At least that's been my experience. I'm a much better editor of my own work now for having edited other people's work. I wrote the word consistency down. I think I was just mentioning that whatever you decide to do stylistically, stay consistent. Just that's an important piece. Linda, you were marveling at how expensive it is for editing, and I was thinking to myself, why does editing cost so much? And the answer to me was pretty apparent. It's because it's hard and it's important. And if I've had people, especially beginning writers, sometimes that'll write and say something, start a conversation, and they'll say, well, hey, will you take a look at my book? And it's such a loaded question, because the answer is yes, I would love to, but some people's expectation, they're expecting like you're going to send it back fully edited or something like that.
Mhm.
And so, and I don't do that, and I don't think anybody listening does either, unless they, specifically agree to. But yeah, it's expensive because it's hard and it's important. And I think it's money well spent or time well spent if you go about it a different way. Just a couple more notes here. One of my beta readers is really big on contractions in dialogue. If you don't want to have a contraction in the narrative, that's up to you depending on your style, but people speak in contractions. Very few people speak without contractions. So which gives you the opportunity, if your character's stuffy, well educated, or for whatever reason does speak without contractions, that's a nice little difference. Just make sure you're consistent. The other, so I got 3 more notes. One big thing that's helped me a lot, and I've written a bunch of books, and it's easy to want to get done with the book. Like, you finish the draft, let's go ahead and start editing it. And people have talked on here before about putting it in the drawer for a little while, letting it marinate. And I just want to jump on that train and blow the whistle and, scream, "I'm king of the world" at the bow of the ship or whatever, to express my support for that idea. Letting it sit and marinate for, it's gonna be different for everybody, but I like to let it sit for a month at least, because then you come back at it in a little different emotional state, and certainly you're able to have fresher, newer eyes on the material. So it's just a good idea to let it marinate. When Beth brought up beta readers, I've got about a dozen or so that I use. And the really neat thing about having a stable of beta readers and cultivating them is they're all good at something different. A couple of them are just really good copy editors. They catch either grammar mistakes or typos or continuity errors. Hey, he took off his jacket twice, and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Other people are not very good at that kind of stuff, but they're really good at coming back with story, character, pace, or just the feel. I've got a couple who just give me like general impressions. I really liked this. It kept moving. And there's actually value in that. I wouldn't want 12 of those people, but I wouldn't want 12 people who could only find typos either. And so finding different people with different strengths is I think, key to building a good beta reader stable. And I thought Beth had some interesting things to say about what you do for them. I put them in my acknowledgements every time. And that's really all I do for them. I mean, they get a free book, advanced copy, but they have to work on it. So I don't know what a good deal that is. But I do put them in the acknowledgements. And then lastly, Linda said that some editors will and some editors won't do like a little demo piece or a little, kind of show you what they can do. And I would say that even if they don't, it would be worth it if you're thinking about working with them, rather than diving in, head first, maybe dive in feet first and say, hey, well, how about if I can contract with you to do my first chapter? And just at, whatever their rate is or whatever, I think it's worth it to do a trial run, because you're auditioning them too. And spend the money to find out if they're the kind of editor, if they're going to do the kind of editing that you want and need. Because in addition to whatever their skill set is, an editor is kind of like a dance partner. Not everybody makes a great dance partner with everybody else. Things need to line up. They kind of have to get you or get your work a little bit. So I would recommend, if you're planning on maybe using them, even if you're pretty happy with the idea and you think you probably are, just do the first chapter or first 3 chapters or something like that. Go on a trial run, and if you dig them, they've already done the first 3 chapters. And if you don't, well, I'm sure there's some nuggets in there that were worth the money, and you didn't contract for all that cash that the entire book is going to cost. So that's my nits and notes and noodles that I was making while everybody else was talking.
Thanks, Frank. That's great. I knew I could count on you to have lots of things to throw in there. You know, when I talk about the money, I want everyone to know, I don't mean that I don't think that they have a right to charge that if it's not worth it. My problem is I don't have that money. And so it makes a difference when you see the prices. One of the reasons that I'm not pursuing a writing career of any sort, other than kind of the back door sort of small stuff, I can't afford to. I can't afford to be a writer. And so, you know, that may sound stupid, but I've crunched the numbers and I can't afford it. So there you are. And I don't want to put out a product that is weak or, you know, not good. So I'd rather write for fun and share it with people and just get out of it what I can. Frank's always, when are you going to finish that story? When are you going to finish that book? Well, yeah.
Yeah, it's
maybe.
only been like a decade, so
I
you know it's
know,
not like
it
I'm
hasn't been
impatient.
long at all. I've got about 3 mysteries I'm writing, and that's as far as I get. Anyway, let's see. We have lots of other people now. Kalela, you said that you've
He's trying to get your attention there.
gave me a link here for you put together some stuff on editing. I will share that with I mean, people can take it off of the chat right now, and I will also put it in the next newsletter. So maybe in case people want to link up with you that way.
Yeah, it's mostly just information about editing rates, different types of editors. One of the things that I noticed, because I do understand how expensive it can be and how daunting it can be to pay for editors, is to look at your adjuncts, because usually they don't get classes in the summer. And so that's what I've been doing to hire editors, is I can hire an adjunct for between $300 and $500 for a novel, versus, you know, when I contacted a professional proofreader, she wanted $2,800. And so, you know, a starving adjunct who doesn't have classes this summer for $500 is a steal, because they've obviously got, you know, a PhD or a master's because they're teaching, right? So I would say, you know, we're local, you know, check NIC or Spokane Falls or Gonzaga or Whitworth and see who isn't getting classes this summer and if they'd be interested in doing some editing for you, because that's a good way to get top quality editing without the top quality price.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that.
It also goes on their CV, so they get something out of it besides the cash.
Sandy, oh, Steve, he's got his hand
Yeah,
up.
I just wanted to add one thing on the editing thing. One of the things that has helped me a great deal, and I have not paid for any editing at this point. We do a lot of it in the critique group. I have 2 certified editors in the critique group, and then my sisters are really good at it, and they help me quite a bit. And then I do have some beta readers. But one thing that I do for myself that I have found to be tremendously helpful is I bring the text up I magnify it on the screen so that I fill my 27-inch screen with the width of a page. And that makes, you know, huge print, but it really makes typos and punctuation and those kind of things pop out. And maybe partly because of my age, but but the bottom line is it works.
Well, I haven't heard much from Denise, Sandy, Tonda, Carol, Sue, Kathy. Anybody else got something they want to say here?
I have a really good critique partner, and she took a copy editing class and she's fantastic. So she does a lot of my initial editing before I send it off. Because I'm with a small publisher. So before I send it off to them, and then they have their editor that sends me back stuff. So, but it's good to have some like think it was Stephen that was saying it, but it's good to have good critique partners and good people to work with outside of that as well, outside of the small publisher.
Yeah, and if you can spend a little bit up front and get some basic editing done, so it's good enough to try to get an agent to submit to somebody. If you get a small press, they're going to provide you an editor, so you won't have to pay for it, you know. And so if I ever get up the energy and the gumption, I may go that route. We'll just see. Let's see. Anybody else here?
Oh, I'll make a comment. I know someone else mentioned it, but I read everything aloud because that's when I find out I have omitted words. Because when I read, I can see the words, but when I read out loud, they're not there. So that was mine, yeah.
Oh. It's funny how the brain tricks us into seeing things that aren't there, isn't it? It feeds it in. I remember there used to be a rule for people that were bookkeepers and stuff. We would add a whole long list of numbers with your calculator, and then you went back and did it reversed, because if you did it the same way again, you'd see this, you would do the same mistake, because our brain just fills it in the second time.
Yeah,
So,
that is so true. That's what we do at work too. You'd go backwards to see if you get the right number. Yeah.
excellent. Sue, you have anything to share?
Yeah, I'm so new at all of this. I'm really just gathering information, but I'm really happy that the one book I published, I've used a lot of the things you've talked about. And I love Procrit and our AutoCrit and reading out loud and critique groups. I'm in Vancouver and haven't had any luck in finding a critique group or a critique partner. So I'm still looking, but that in the past has been the most useful to me.
You're in
So,
Vancouver, Washington?
yeah.
Whoa. Well, welcome aboard.
Yeah, Paul who used to drive down to Vancouver for a critique group, introduced me to you guys. So
right.
yeah,
Right.
it's worth it. I'll get in my car and come.
Sue, I'm going to put my email in the chat. Send me a message offline. I've got a writer friend in Vancouver. She might be willing to hook up with you.
Oh, great.
If you're
Thanks,
interested.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Because we're getting it like 18 after 8. We've been having so much fun here.
This is very interesting what I've enjoyed everybody's comments tonight.
Yeah, that's my favorite part. I love doing a little bit of presentation of what I've researched, but I just love hearing everybody else pitch in their ideas. That's the best part.
I've appreciated. We'll be looking for an editor soon. So this is really timely and helpful.
Oh, wonderful. I'm glad. That does my heart so much good. Great. Well, and you can save the chat real easy. I hope anybody doesn't know how to save the chat. You go down there at the bottom and over to the far right, and there's 3 little dots.
Mm-hmm.
If you click on that, it opens up and says save chat.
Oh,
Click on that and it will, to your computer, whether it'll send a copy of that chat.
it just comes up with your message tonight about the Zoom meeting on mine. Oh, record on.
You have to open chat first. So you click
Be
the
in chat.
chat button and it'll come up on the side of your screen. Then at the bottom where there's your message, where you can message, there's 3 little dots there, and you'll click that and it'll say save chat.
You open the chat, Carol?
No, I don't know how to do this.
Do you see the chat across the bottom of your screen? And
No.
I do not.
No.
when you hover down below on your screen, do they show themselves to you?
Just the little dots.
Just the little dots. What does it say? More or anything
It
like
doesn't say anything.
I don't get it either.
It says record on this computer.
No, that's one of the things. You're hitting the little dots. If it's not, look at, do you see your mute, your stop video, and
Mute, yeah.
The participant, reactions, apps, whiteboards, any of that?
No, just
No.
mute in the video.
Okay.
How many people are
When you,
chatting?
when you click on the three dots, what does it show you?
Nothing.
No list?
No, just this record on this computer.
Okay, well, that's the recording button.
Okay, Carol, is
Yeah.
yours minimized or is
Mhm.
it full screen?
The dots? I'm not following you.
Your
The
whole screen.
line on
So-
the bottom.
The screen for your Zoom, is it taking up the whole of your computer screen or just a box, a small box?
No, it's the whole thing.
Oh, it is seeing the whole thing?
Yeah.
Well, I'll
Okay.
tell you what, the easy part, Carol, email me and I'll send you a copy of the chat.
Okay. That's okay.
I'm here for.
All right.
So,
Actually, what I would like is all those things you read off to us.
sure, yeah, and again, just email me at lindawriter@gmail.com and say, hi, it's me. I want all that stuff,
Okay.
including the chat.
Okay,
I'll remember to add that.
thank you very much.
Sure, no problem. Any other thoughts before we say bye-bye?
No, we're fine.
Oh,
And well, I was just gonna say, I've learned to write just by writing and I've gotten better just over time.
there you go.
Yeah,
Me too. Started out as a kid and just kept doing it.
yep.
One of these years, after 70 years, I'll get it right. Oh. Well, thank you so much, everybody. I appreciate you coming in, and again, all your input. It was wonderful. If you have any more questions or comments, email me. I'll be
Okay.
there. Bye.
This was
Thanks
fun.
for doing this, Linda.
Thank you, Linda.
Yeah,
Thank
that
you,
was-
everyone.
that was
Thank you, Linda.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.